All right, y'all ready to get into some AI stuff? Let's chat AI. Awesome. All right, we're up on LinkedIn and YouTube is working. Good deal. All right, so let's chat. I mentioned a couple weeks back, took a weekend just to do kind of a deep dive, catch up on some of the latest stuff when it comes to AI. And so I want to talk about this from the perspective of kind of where we've come and talk about what the future I think will look like. As you come in, be sure to say hello and let me know if you have any questions as I go through this. So another side note that ties into this, I put up a post on IG about the history of SoftBank. And so that'll be good to check out as I go through this on kind of the future of where AI will lead us as deal makers, and I think how it's going to just impact things. I think it's going to be very interesting, a lot of opportunities. And I also want to tell you exactly kind of what types of businesses I would be buying based on the impact that AI is going to have in the future. So let's start with where we are now. I was recently in the US and it was pretty shocking that we're still, I don't know if it's so much recovering from COVID and just people not having to work and not wanting to go back to work. But yeah, it's still the case. I mean, you go to restaurants, you go to just stores, there's just, signs of people say, hey, we're short staffed, we can't offer this, or, we're short staffed, there's only, drive through available. It's really interesting to see that that long-term impact of people not wanting to go back to work. I mean, it's lingering now. And I think it's really the case that a lot of those people may never come back to work again. And I think it's good to take a more historical viewpoint. And this may seem a little bit extreme, but I think it's only extreme because we're in the middle of it. So if you go back to slavery, and everybody always wants to use like the slavery analogy, but I want to go through different points of history. So if you go back to slavery, at that point, as horrible as it was, the average person, especially in the South, and for a while earlier in the history, it was everybody, George Washington, everybody just had slaves. And as unfortunate as it is, it was just a culturally accepted thing. So society accepted the fact that these people were going to be slaves. To go back even further, it was just like the standard. You go back to biblical times. So you had all of these thousands and thousands and thousands of years where slavery was accepted. And then you reach a point where people start to realize, and some of it is rebellions and just some of those things, but a lot of it was just people realizing, hey, like we're humans, we can't treat other humans like this, that whole thing. And then there were some political things in America that caused the Civil War outside of slavery. It was not over slavery, as a lot of people say. But that was one stage. And so now the more removed we are, we're just like, man, that is horrific. And it's one of the reasons that people use it as kind of this analogous thing, is that it is a horrific thing. So you step a step beyond that. And you look at sharecroppers. My grandmother was a sharecropper, or even the robber baron era, which is this other 100-year period where it was very, very horrible conditions on both ends, for the sharecroppers and for white people that work for the robber barons. So if you were working in a factory at that point, I mean, there was just no guidelines as to how you had to treat people. People were getting arms chopped off, people were dying. I mean, it's hard for us to, where it's hard, it's almost like a war where, if you're in a war, you have things that are acceptable, things that are normal that just aren't normal once you get out of war, right? And when you're in PTSD, part of that is that having the issues of separating those two things. And so, for the people during that time, it was just this very accepted thing that, a part of working in these factories is that you may, certain number of people are just going to die, and you're going to be maimed, and you're going to have all of these risks that are associated with it. Now we moved beyond that point, and the government got involved, and they said, hey, these factories have to have certain guidelines, and this is just outrageous how Carnegie and the Rockefellers and all of those folks were treating employees. So again, we look back on that period now, it's just like with disgust, because it was disgusting as well. So you go a little bit further in history, you look at factories and unions. And when you get past kind of the government coming in and saying, hey, like there has to be some kind of safety guidelines, then you get into the unions that they said, hey, we need to come together and just be paid well. Like, forget the fact that I'm here and, there's some safety guidelines. Like, that's great. That was kind of the predecessor's fight. Now the fight is the company has all of the power. We have no power. If they come in and say, hey, you have to, we're going to take a $5 cut off everybody. Sorry, the numbers not looking like what they're supposed to be. Tough luck. And this is a little bit of having, this ability to force people to work. And so this is where, you get where it's like wage slave and that kind of thing, which has a little bit of legitimacy in the fact that somebody's saying, if you don't do this thing for this price, then I'm going to not allow you to eat. I'm not allow you to live. And with people living from paycheck to paycheck, that creates really kind of, I consider a more modern kind of societal slavery, where there's this just control that that companies have over their employees. And so, but we can look back on that period and say, man, like, it's a good thing for the unions that they balanced out the power, because the factory still had all of that power over them. So, and I'm gonna speed this up. So, and then the final piece is kind of cubicle work. And that's a little bit of where we are now, where you're in this place, there's no natural light. You got, this nasty carpet. It's just like the idea that you're sitting in this cubicle for hours upon hours a day, it becomes kind of almost an inhumane type of work. And I say inhumane because the robots can do it. So we can look at factory work now and say, man, like, back in old factories, it was one person doing what, a machine easily does now. It's just like, maybe one motion all day, every day, just like mind-numbing work. And mind-numbing because that person is having to really turn themselves into a robot. When you kind of aren't using your human faculties, really what you're doing is you're deciding to become a robot for those 8 hours, and in exchange for money, because you're doing something that now we know a robot could do. So it's interesting now, I think that, what we're seeing in fast food with everybody's quitting, like for a long time, and really not a long time, like when you compare the, 1,000 history year of slavery on earth in general, not in the US, but just thousands of years of, the history of slavery. And then, hundreds of years of the robber baron area, and then 80 years until the Union, and then 40. And so you kind of see it's condensing down. And so now we're at a point where the people don't want to do robotic work. People don't want to turn themselves into robots, and I think there's a rebellion against this. And so I think that it's so interesting when, that trip to the US, it just, it gives context to where we are and the impact that's going to be interesting that AI is going to have. Now, I think it also has to be a part of the equation that the people behind the best technology that we have right now in AI between the two companies have both said we need to start figuring out universal basic income. And I think that that's because they're seeing the true potential more than we are. Like, we get one version that's released to us, but I think they're working on it and they're like, oh, this replaces everybody. This replaces a lot of people. And so for them to go out of their way, while, these people are amazing. You look at Sam Altman, like, he is busy. Like, adding anything to his plate has to be purposeful and meaningful. And so for him to add to his plate, we need to start now figuring out universal basic income says a lot about what he thinks about the future. So I want to put that into context as far as like the experts, because I certainly am no expert. So the people that are building it are saying, yeah, like, we've got to figure this out, because this is gonna change everything. So the biggest downside to, in your work life, kind of being and becoming a robot is we've kind of accepted this societal norm that most of people's lives are robotic. And this was the thing, man, when I was young, the reason I was really passionate about trying to figure out income. And, I'm so passionate about helping y'all learn how to acquire income, how to buy income instead of exchanging your life for it, is I got to see, after I lost my company, I went to SunTrust and I was working there, and I got to see, like, oh, so these people that are working in these offices and their whole life is kind of already predetermined. That's not what I want my life to look like. And so it ends up bleeding over. The whole kind of robotic thing ends up bleeding over into your regular life. You're waking up to this alarm clock every day. You're, making some food for the dog. You're making some coffee for yourself. You're kissing the kids. You're in the car. You're in traffic. You're yelling at somebody. You get to work. You're in the cubicle. 8 hour. You go in between for lunch. You're with the same people, having the same conversations. You get back in the car, traffic, and it's just like, and then you watch some TV. And so the fact that you have become a robot at work, I think, bleeds over, and people become robotic in their everyday life. And so that gives a little bit of the picture. And I think that is the reason I want to paint that picture for you is, I think, fast forward 200 years from now, the same way we can look back 200 years from before. And I think they will look back on this period and say, wow, there were people that were working in this little 8x6 cubicle. There's no natural light, no natural air. They had a time that they had to go and eat. The food, because they had to get it quick, wasn't nutritious. I just think they're going to look back and it's going to be similar to how we look back to them. And it's like, well, and then they only had this short amount of time with their kid. That's outrageous. How could they have lived like that? Same way I look back on slavery. It's like, oh my God, like generation after generation, like, how did they do it? I can't comprehend how they did it. And they did it. And I think that there are a lot of people that are doing things now that we'll look back on or I won't be here, but 200 years from now, or who knows, there may be technology where I will be here in 200 years. So let's talk, that's the scene. that's kind of where we are. That's, kind of stepping back and looking at the history of what got us here. And so I think the exciting thing for us as deal makers is at any given time, like we don't have to be a part of trends. We just have to understand them and respond. So we don't have to be a part of starting it. That's kind of the benefit for what we do. Entrepreneurs have to take the risk of, is this going to be the big thing? Is this going to be the big thing? They've got to figure it out early. We don't have to do any of that. And that's why I want to take a big picture. I play with a lot of tools, and there's some really amazing things out there. But the specific tools and specific strategies of today don't matter as much for us. What we're doing is trying to look to the future. And, well, that was a lightning just there. We don't have to look. Can y'all hear that? That's some serious thunder out there. And I will get to the comments. So yeah, we don't have to be a part of the very beginning. We can, build something that we're doing now. We can go out and acquire other businesses based on where things are headed in the future, but also buying it today based on its valuation today. So some of the things that I think are going to be really interesting. Number one, we look at AI as, okay, it's learning about the world. We're interacting, we ask questions, we give feedback. It's learning about the world through us. But what is learning way more than about the world is they're learning about us. They're learning our psychology. And, if you're using social media right now, you know that it can feed you between ads and posts, kind of or it's at least trying to feed you what you want. People talk about all these weird cases. Years ago, it was, it's listening to me because I say something and it feeds me ads. And now people get freaked out because they have a thought of, I'd really love to go and buy that shirt I saw the other day. And as they're having that thought, whatever social media throws up an ad for that thing. And what it's doing, what the algorithm is doing over time, it's just learning you. So why that's really interesting when it comes to AI is that AI is learning us way faster and way on a much deeper level than an algorithm ever could. And so things from the perspective of just social media are going to get really, really interesting, outrageous. Just side note on a personal level, I think this is the time to be just very cognizant of what, because they're obviously going to start using this like now. They don't have to tell us that they're using it. And so I would start to just be very cognizant of not just taking posts for what they are, but trying to filter and trying to control what information you're giving by how you interact. Now that's difficult because they're tracking everything. How you don't have to like the post. It can tell that you slowed down a little bit. It can tell that you were interested in the comments, which comment was the most interesting to you, and how that might tell them something about you. So just being very, very cognizant. I've talked about the dangers and issues of social media before, but the great news is if you're on this side of the aisle, I'll call it aisle between consumers and deal makers, it is a really, really great time to be on the deal maker side. I love one of my favorite interviews was Lil Wayne was being interviewed and they were asking, well, what music do you listen to? And he was like, man, I end up just listening to a lot of my music. And that was the first thing he said. And you could tell he was kind of thinking about it. And he was like, oh no, I guess I don't really listen to music because it's so much more fun creating it. So he was saying, oh, I only listen to my music, but he's creating and listening back and that kind of thing. But he was like, no, like, listening to music is actually kind of boring, which that is so interesting for him to say when you could create it. And I think that's the thing, even for us deal makers, it's like, man, like looking at social media is pretty boring when you can go and buy a company and start to buy the social media accounts that drive traffic to that company. Like, and who knows, like that may sound crazy to some people, but I think that's so much more fun. Like that's so much more interesting than just mindlessly using it. And so I want to let's talk a little bit again about, because this does tie into the type of business that we want to go after. And so if you look at social media as kind of what turned into the social media that we have access to now, a big part of that shift, because some of you are like me, you're around in the Friendster era and the MySpace era. And they were big things, but they had no potential of becoming the companies that they are for now. MySpace was the largest at that point, and it's like $500 million company. So the big catalyst there was actually the platforms. So it was the iPhone having screens, which iPhone was really the folks that perfected that. And obviously now we have Galaxy and all that. And so those as platforms created trillions of dollars of value. If you go a step beyond that, you have apps that were on top of that. And those apps, and I tell you guys all the time, I'm always looking for kind of the $1 billion plays, not because I'm interested in billion and $1 trillion plays, but if I'm finding where, when we talk about the currency and the current of money, and you're trying to figure out where it's going, I don't want to figure out where the millionaires, where that current is going. If I can figure out where the billions and the billionaires are sending their currency, then it's a lot easier to get millions. If there's only millions that are even capable of being gotten, then it becomes a lot tougher to get a million. It's easier to get the millions when there are billions going through the process of what you're doing or through that space. So apps were the secondary kind of step. You had IG, Facebook, all of these things that turned into apps, and them being able to be on phones and be with you all the time changed everything. On top of that, we get into the hundreds of millions because media started to get built, but those are soon becoming billions as well. So you have Joe Rogan, he sells to Spotify in a licensing deal for 100 million. You have people like Mr. Beast, who will probably be a billionaire at some point. And so now on top, you have the platform, you have the apps, you have the media, and each of those are creating or have created valuations in the billions. With Joe and Mr. Beast, what you see though is that most of their money came from other apps. So it really has come from that secondary level. So you had the apps like Spotify, you had the apps like YouTube, and those apps are what generated the money for the media. And I think what we're moving to, and you can see it even with Mr. Beast and him starting Beast Burgers, is this combination of the two, where you don't need necessarily an app. You don't really care about the platform. You are trying to have a direct relationship with the consumers, and your money comes from that relationship. And that's where I think things start to get really interesting for us as deal makers, because, as I've talked about before, We want to do deals. If I can buy a media company that has access to eyeballs, we should never be paying for ads. Nobody, no, I stress this all the time. If you see a deal maker paying for ads, they're not a deal maker. Because we want to go and buy stuff. We don't want to rent stuff. If you're good at deal making, then you would just go out and acquire an asset that has the eyeballs if you really want to get access to those eyeballs. So for us, we can go and buy the media and add businesses to it. And then we can acquire the businesses based on that strategic value of the media. We can get equity in businesses. I taught, we had one of the newer Patreon folks who was asking about the contract that we use in our consulting for equity and merger for equity deals. And so we just shared that in the Patreon. But when it comes to those types of deals, when you can buy the media, now that becomes a currency that you can use to get access to these other businesses where you're just exchanging access in exchange for equity in their business. This is one of the most, it's one of the coolest things you can do, because a lot of these businesses are already spending a bunch of money on ads. And so literally what you're saying is, hey, don't give me money, like just give me equity in the business and I'll give you access to some of my eyeballs. You could also go and acquire the business and replace their ads with access to the media. So being able to buy the media is interesting, and then being able to buy the business is interesting. And in both cases, the exciting thing is you're gonna drive down costs with AI on both sides. So it's always been a strategy that you can buy the business and then go buy the media. And that's something we've done for years. We're just now starting to do deals. We're buying the media and then we go and do the deal on the business. Now, especially on the media side, but on both sides, when you do that deal, it becomes easier with AI. So on the media side, you only want to buy companies, and this is going to be the huge thing. I think a lot of people aren't understanding the value of AI. So a lot of folks are like, oh, like you can do, all of this content and you can write articles on your blog and newsletters and all this stuff. But if you're just getting random information from ChatGPT, which everybody can get access to, and you're posting that, it doesn't have any value. The second part is there are already folks that have built software that can tell that it came from ChatGPT anyway, and that's going to get worse. But the real thing, and I've seen these ads, and I called out one of them, but on Instagram, it's just like, this is not going to last. Where they're like, oh, you just write an ebook and get ChatGPT to write the ebook and then sell that. Number one, not only is that disingenuous, because you can just tell the people, hey, this is free, and you can just go ask this question to ChatGPT and it'll tell you all the stuff. Where it becomes valuable is where you have a true media company that has been producing a lot of proprietary information, and you've got a specific voice. And so when you can have ChatGPT look at all of your data, and you've got thousands and thousands of whether it's social media posts, podcasts, videos, all of those things, and it's specifically studying that voice. The problem with ChatGPT is that it's just searching all of these different things. Now, you can today get a AI that's almost as robust as ChatGPT 3, and you can download it on your computer and have it just review the information that you want it to review. And so then, one of the biggest issues is people ask ChatGPT a question and it's given something that is just a lie, but it says it very confidently. And so you don't know when it's something that's valuable or real or not. So if on the media side, AI can start to add some of that media, make the media less expensive to create. Then on on the business side, it's replacing some of those workers. It makes each one of those deals more valuable to buy. So if you're in a specific industry and you've already done the work to use AI to replace some of the expenses in that business, whether it's employees or outsourced workers or whatever, and you can buy other businesses and instantly implement those savings, you're able to buy businesses at a discount. And I think we're at a point right now, nobody is really implementing, there's a lot of talk about AI, but nobody's really using it. Now, the final thing is on the media side, we want to be on the other side of that aisle. So we want to be the deal makers and not the consumers, because AI is going to make monetizing media more valuable than ever before. That's the real win. And so, if you're in a business and you're not buying media right now, I think you should be. There's just no reason not to have a certain amount of your budget that you're using to acquire media. Because as this thing gets better and better, that audience, it's going to be able to understand your audience at a deeper level than ever before and monetize them at a deeper level. And for the first time, this is the exciting part. For the first time, we're going to be able to access it. See, the problem right now is we can't use the algorithm. We don't get a benefit from the algorithm. And so we've had to go to the big company, and the big company has had control. And they've been the people that basically say, hey, okay, you've got to come to us, bring everything to us, and we'll monetize it because we have the algorithm. That is out the window. Pretty soon, all of us will have something much better than the best algorithm they ever dreamed of, which is our own little mini AI that can help us monetize our media on a whole nother level. So that's going to be really, really valuable and really exciting. Now, I think the other thing for folks that are working jobs and just trying to figure out, hey, what do I do next? Where are the opportunities? I think that either if you're not in a business right now where they're involving you in learning how to use AI to help improve your job, it may be that they're going to use AI to replace you. And so I really would embrace working at companies if you have to have a job. Now, the real goal is if at all possible, I do think now is more important than ever before to try to learn the skills of a deal maker and try to find a business to acquire and, trying to buy something that is in this category, buying a business that can benefit from media, buying media that you can find businesses to acquire that would benefit from that media. That should really be the goal. If you can't do that, then at least getting into a job where they're embracing this, not only because you might be replaced, but because those are going to be the people that are the most valuable as we go forward. Now, final piece to the acquisition side. The other exciting thing is it's going to be easier to finance either side of these deals than ever before because we're entering into hyperinflation while all of this other stuff is going on. And that means that people have to put their money to work. And so it's easier than ever to raise capital. We're seeing it in acquisition holding company right now. When I talk about the ladies that have closed 3 deals so far, and some of the other, we're up to 7 deals closed in these last couple of months between the 20 some odd folks. And one of the reasons that it is easier than ever to close deals is that there's more money out there than ever before. So take advantage of the money that is out there, and then take advantage of this huge. It really is an amazing storm. So kind of based on my research, just more excited. I think we're in this perfect storm where we've got a big opportunity to set ourselves up to benefit as AI gets better and better. All right, let's take a few questions and then we'll bounce out of here. Ernesto popped in, says, Ace, hope all is well. I appreciate it, sir. Jay Burrow came and checked in. What is up, man? Chap. Oh, what's up, you guys? Say, what's up? Had to check in. I appreciate it. Let's see. Yike. I'll just say yike 23. What's up? He says, how old are you, bro? I am 42. Says you look 21. I appreciate that. That's great. Lighting just hit me right today. The most powerful are the most invisible. That is 100% true. I love, we own a lot of different social media accounts. And a lot of times we just buy the business and it comes with the media account. So we've been doing that, just buying the business for years. And we're just now transitioning to buying specific media. And it is really cool to be behind those accounts, and just nobody knows and nobody needs to know. It's like, here's the product, here's what we're promoting, here's the type of content that you're getting, and that's what matters. We're talking about living paycheck to paycheck. That is a nightmare. To have to worry about, if you lose your job, are you going to be able to pay your bills? And I guess I'm trying to think, what was the last, I've been fortunate, man. I haven't lived paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, since before my first deal, like 20. So that is a very huge blessing. My cubicle has a window. Yes. If you got to be in the cubicle, man, at least be able to see the sun, get some sun in there. I love your content. I appreciate it. M. Sway, I believe they're listening through our speakers. I was having a convo with a friend some time ago, and I started to get ads related to our convo. Oh yeah, they're like, they've admitted that part. Like when you're talking, that the mic is always on, basically. Eddie Wallace says, you should create more short form content. I do need to do that. And I've got an editor who's going to start to do some of that stuff and start putting up some more kind of short posts, and YouTube wants it. So I definitely will. I appreciate that editing, Walla. M. Sway, I added money to the savings in my bank account and started getting ads targeting people with the exact money I had. That is wild. And all the stuff, you think about the apps and everything, and email. Gmail reads our email, and they've admitted that. So we'll take this last one and bounce out of here. Hey, Ace, where's the lowest hanging fruit from an AI at the moment for an acquisition? Joined late. Sorry if you said it earlier. I did, but it's great. That's a great one to end on. The biggest opportunity is on the media side. It's going to be easier and easier to do two things: create media and target and basically monetize that media with your audience, kind of with some of the things that we're talking about right now. That's going to go to another level with AI. Like, the algorithms are pretty amazing, but AI is going to be better. And so to get media right now that you'll be able to use during that time will be valuable. And at the same time, buying businesses that can use that media instead of their ad dollars. So if you buy a business that has high ad dollars as part of their revenue, on the other end, you have the media, which is easier to create more media easier to more profitable, not just easier, more profitable to monetize. And then you're buying deals that can also save money and put more money in your pocket by using that same media. Chat says, I'll be reviewing the video multiple times, super valuable. Too much to type though. I appreciate y'all. Yeah, so I want to do more short form, but a lot of times, there's just a lot. And so I'm trying to I want to give value most importantly. And unfortunately, value is boring. Like the real stuff, the real work, the real reality takes, context and history and, understanding where things are going. And to do that, in the 60-second short form, I want to do it because it does get the word out for the longer content. But I think it is a little bit of the symptom for some of our L's and when I say L's, I mean, some of the issues that are happening with shorter focus and all that. I think the other thing, and just as a side note to this audience, it does separate out the audiences that are really trying to do something from the folks that are, just want to get a good feeling from watching a short. And I think that's led to the community. I think at the same time that I want to do some of it, I'm not interested in just having the biggest audience. I've said it before. I don't want a lot of people. I want the right people. And so that's my goal. Thank y'all so much for checking out this one. Look forward to hearing y'all's questions. If you're not on the Patreon, come check it out. We have some good stuff there. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe and be sure to like.